Hello, everyone. It is always a pleasure to join the my Van Dyke family here. I'm Jason, of course, with Florida Best Quote Insurance. I'm our director of business development, and I always enjoy getting on here, usually monthly, with you guys to be able to talk a little bit about some things that are going on. So, um, I hope our clients are starting to feel this more and more, but there's a lot of positives going on in the insurance industry. Um, and I'm going to touch on some of those today. But one thing that popped up yesterday that I just want to make everybody aware of. So and it's not that it's bad news, it's just news, right? Um, so everyone knows or should know that, we've been in a situation where Citizens has been trying for quite some time to get rid of business. And so they have all these different policies and different things that they've done to try to do that, right? And some of that's, they've just made things a lot stricter than they have in the past. They were always the company of last resorts. That's all that they were, or last resort. That's all they were ever supposed to be. They're the state-run insurance company, but they ended up with well over, I think, close to 1.7, 1.4 million clients, customers at their peak, and they were never supposed to do that. So they've been doing all these things to try to get rid of business. And one of those things is it's called depopulation, which they've been doing for quite some time, where basically they're reshopping. I guess the simplest way to explain it, they're basically reshopping their own policies. And if they can find another option for you that's within 20% of their premium, then you have to move, right? If it's within the 20%, then they give you a choice, right? And so they've been sending out thousands of these depopulation letters, and they've been doing it for quite some time. We just got a notice yesterday that 1,000 of our clients alone are getting letters. They were either, I think they were mailed out yesterday. So basically, those are people that are going to have to make the choice of whether they're going to stay with Citizens or they're going to leave Citizens. And the tricky thing with Citizens is if the letter will either say they're giving you a choice and you have to respond, or you don't have a choice and you have to move. And I think I did get my sequence backwards when I was talking earlier. If they don't find an option over 20%, then you have the option to stay, or within 20%, you have the option to stay. So basically, what's happened now is I know, like I said, 1,000 of our clients are getting letters. So we're having to be proactive and try to contact. We have a list of these people, and we're contacting them just to let them know what's going on. The key thing is with Citizens, and some of you have run into this before, and you'll talk to clients that have dealt with this before. You have to respond. If they're saying they're moving you, like, hey, I found another option, and we're going to move you to that company. Um, if you don't respond at all, they're moving you automatically. So I've always been frustrated with that, but that's the way it is. If you don't choose, you have to choose to stay. You're not choosing to move, you're choosing to stay because they're going to move you. It's kind of backwards as far as what I would think would be the right thing. But again, it's just a tactic of theirs to try to lose business. So just be aware. That's just one simple thing. That's not the main thing I wanted to talk about today, but we're going to have a lot of clients statewide. If it's 1,000 for us, just our agency, I mean, that's a lot of people for just one agency. Uh, statewide, it's going to be a big number, and I haven't seen what that number is going to be. So we're going to have a lot of people that are just like, what do I do? What do I do? So if you happen to hear from any of your clients that talk to you about that, then just be aware of that. Um, anyway, any questions about that real quick?
And that's definitely for existing policy holders right now. So that's not for future potential home buyers yet. And we personally went through this depopulation process last year. It has been a little bit of a mess because Citizens didn't communicate very well to the next carrier when we canceled with Citizens because we reshopped. We had to
Yeah.
go through the whole inspection process, and that's also another thing I don't, worth mentioning that if you let them move you over to the new carrier, it's seamless. Like you're just going to wait when your policy it comes up for renewal. It's going to go to the new
Correct.
carrier. If you move beforehand, like you shop around and you get a better deal, which I did, I went with you guys, and that was a very great process in that sense. But when Citizens, our duration of our policy ended, And we canceled with Citizens. We told them, hey, we are canceling with you. We're moving to a new company. When the renewal came, they did not advise the new carrier that we canceled. And so the new carrier sent a request for payment from our mortgage company. And that's where we're at right now. So, and we
Uh,
couldn't talk to the new carrier until the policy became effective. So it was a double edge at that point. It's like, but we canceled with Citizens. Citizens didn't tell the new carrier. We got a new policy and paid it. And now they're letting, so that is where we're currently at. And that's just as a current homeowner who has had to deal with the depopulation. So I think year down the road, that's what some people may have to deal with. But
yeah, good
reshopping
points.
saved money. Like it really did. Like, just going with who Citizens thought that we were within that 20% bracket. Uh, like you're already getting rid of our business. I think at this point I need to, be as a wise homeowner and shop around. So we did that part. But if you just let them move you over, you don't communicate and it happens, then I think you'll be fine in that sense. But you have to just look at the policies and compare.
Yeah. No, and those are great points, and thanks for sharing that. Just as someone that's dealt with it or dealing with it, unfortunately, thankfully, if you end up and y'all have done this as mortgage companies, you know this as a mortgage company. If you send out if there's a double payment, right? You pay this company and you pay another company, there's going to be a refund. I mean, the company, you might have to go through the trouble of, hey, we canceled this policy. That should been taken care of. And if you work with an agent, typically what we would do is make sure that we're canceling Citizens basically. If we're doing it midterm, you're canceling Citizens to go with another company, right? And then
Yes.
hopefully that will take care of the other company. Sometimes maybe it does not, the one the policy is being transferred to. But we do see, for a lot of different reasons, we see double payment sometimes. And we always tell the client if the payment comes back to you, you've got to get that payment back into your mortgage company because they got two payments out
Oh,
on you.
absolutely.
And you
Absolutely. And
don't
we
want
also
to,
switched agencies, sorry to cook it, but we did switch agencies. So that also
yeah,
made it difficult for the same agency to communicate.
right.
So that we understand that that was a big factor of it. But if it's the same agency and, they're working with you and they're reshopping, then yeah, then hopefully the communication is a lot more streamlined.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you for that, and just be aware that this is going on right now. We're going to have a lot of people affected. I don't know if this is a estimate or an indicator, what's the word? Indicative of how many thousands of people will be impacted. It could be six figures. We've seen that before, clients and within the state at one time. But in the past, I've only seen maybe a couple of companies at a time that are taking on these policies, people that are being moved out or being depopulated. And there's, I think, four that I know of right now that they're using to try to get people out of Citizens. I think it was Florida Peninsula, Homeowners Choice, Manatee Insurance, and Patriot. So anyway, it's just them trying to continue to lose policies. Now, going from that into the good news that's going on, and Gabriella experienced this. There's a lot of positives going on in the home insurance market from a rate standpoint, from an underwriting standpoint, from a uh, just a strictness of guidelines, from opportunities for options. We're well over 60 property insurance carriers now, which I don't know of any other agency in the state that has that many. I'm sure there is some. So we don't say we've got more than anybody. We just usually say more than 95%, because we know that we do. Because we've been very diligent over the last 15 years or more to try to get every single company that's writing in the state of Florida. And so what's been really, really positive recently, I say recently, over the last 6 months especially, is it's mind-boggling how many companies are lowering rates, not taking rate increases, loosening underwriting guidelines. They want to write business. And what some people might not even realize is, we had the two storms last year. It really didn't impact the home insurance market in a big negative way. There was a lot of concern that, Well, we just had these two storms, all this damage. We're going to see home insurance companies bail on Florida. We're going to see them raise their rates. Didn't happen. And we have more and more of our companies coming to us wanting to talk to us and say, hey, we want to tell you about some of these great products we have. We want to let you know about some of the rate decreases that that we're doing to try to drive more business. So the home insurance market in Florida is healthier than it's been in years. And so that's a huge thing. So I just want to kind of give you a few examples of that. Just like in the last, this is just in the last 2 or 3 days, right? One of our company, and these are for I think specifically for DP3 policies. So that's basically a rental. You own a property and you're renting it out to someone. That policy is called a DP3 policy. Um, Sage Shore, effective September, effective immediately, took a rate decrease of 12% on DP3s. American Integrity for homes 6 years and older just took a 6.4 rate reduction on their HO3 policy. So that's for their single family homes. For their condo, American Integrity's condo market, they just took a statewide average rate reduction of 9.8%. And staying on American Integrity, because we just met with their broker here just a couple of days ago. Not only that, they're removing their exclusion for wind-driven rain. There are some companies that if your house floods as a result of wind-driven rain, you're not going to be covered. They had that on their policy. They are now excluding that. They're raising their coverage a maximum to $3 million, which is more than it used to be. Let's see. Yeah, those are the main things about them. Their DP3 policies, they're taking a 5% rate reduction. So those are just those two policies alone. I mean, I've got a list. I keep a list of ongoing insurance updates. Universal's another one. And I want to just talk about this briefly. I think I might have mentioned this before on the call. I went years without writing a citizens policy at all because there were other options for older homes. The reason Citizens has so many policies is because companies almost completely stopped writing homes that were older and with older roofs, right? And so we were in a situation where if a home was early 80s and older, it was Citizens all day. Uh, the next best options were not going to be very competitive. That's how bad it had gotten. And so one of those companies was Universal. They were one of the main reasons that I was able to not write with Citizens because Universal was competitive on older homes. Well, they are starting to get more competitive on older homes again, along with a company like Frontline. Frontline right now is blowing everybody's rates out of the water. And we were scared because we've seen companies do this before where they come into the state and they just lowball everyone. And we're losing clients to, like Kin is an example, KIN. They came into the state, lowballed everyone the first year. This is just a few years ago. And they're calling us, hey, I got to move. I'm sorry. I got to go with this other insurance company. They're $500 or $1,000 less. And we're telling them, well, let us know in a year because we have a feeling they're lowballing everybody on purpose to get the business. And then in a year, they're going to jack everyone's rates up. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what happened. So we were scared that a company like Frontline was going to basically, because their rates are so low and have been low here for a little while, and we're writing so much business with them, and they're a great company, that, oh man, they got to have a rate increase. They're just too low. Well, because we just talked to their rep the other day, because they were so smart on their claims process over the last year, the state has informed them they need to, because of their balance sheet, however that works, they got to take another rate decrease because their rates aren't low enough based on the amount of claims they're paying out. So they're all governed by the state of Florida, and they are all involved with what kind of rates they have or what kind of rate decreases or increases they have. So it's just kind of interesting, right? All of these companies, and I'm not trying to get into the weeds on all this, but I just want to give you some examples of the fact that there are competitive options against Citizens now, and there are underwriting guidelines that are better than they've been in a long time. They're taking more expensive companies are taking more expensive homes. They're taking homes with roofs a little bit older. they're just lowering some of those underwriting guidelines that have been so strict for a while. So all that to say, and I'm sorry if I got too much into the weeds on some of the details of that, but I just really wanted to communicate that all the legislation that passed in the state of Florida in 2022 that was designed to curb some of the fraud that had been going on with roofs for so long, and which was the main driving force with home insurance rates skyrocketing over the last 5 years. The legislation the state passed in 2022, we were told it was going to take 2 to 3 years for us to start seeing the benefits of that, and they were exactly right. Here we are 2 to 3 years later, and we are seeing massive benefits. Companies are doing everything they can to write more business in the state of Florida. And when's the last time we could say that, right? So what I would really encourage people to know about that is Citizens is not the only option out there now for older homes. There are other competitive options. And then for everybody else, there's just a lot of good reasons to reshop your policy. If you haven't reshopped it in a while and you've stayed with the same company for several years and your rates aren't great in your mind, there's never been a better time to look at other rates because not only over the last year are there more companies to write with, but the guidelines on your home have probably lessened as far as some of the strictness. If you've got an older water heater, there's some companies that'll take that. Even though 15 is kind of our cutoff for most companies, if you've got one over 15, there's companies that'll write that. If you have a roof that's 15, 16 years old, there's some companies that'll take it. I think roofs are probably going to be the last thing to, from an underwriting standpoint, the last domino to fall, maybe, because that's the reason that all the rates went up. So we're not seeing this mass, we're taking 20-year-old roofs now, 25-year-old shingle roofs. We're not seeing any of that. Um, but we are seeing a lot of great things. So any questions about that? It's something to be excited about.
Oh, that's great
Um,
news.
yeah, I've
Some
been
good
really
news
excited.
on this Friday.
Say that again.
Some good news on this Friday. So something to be excited about for sure.
Yes, it is because if as mortgage rates have kind of dropped, over time, and if home insurance rates drop, then that's good for the real estate community overall,
Yeah.
right? That's good for the home
Yes.
buyers. So it's good. We're all kind of in this together, and the real estate transaction is not just one entity, right? There's several entities involved in the real estate transaction, so we kind of depend on each other from an industry standpoint. I try to get this message out as much as I can. At the same time, when I usually do, if I'm talking to realtors or clients, you know, we can say the industry is doing great, but if that person we're talking to, if their rates are still high, they have no idea. They're looking at it like, I mean, it's the sky is still falling for them, right? Um, so I would just, help us communicate some of this. And if your clients, especially on the mortgage side or on the real estate side, um, if you're working with someone and they're concerned about their rates, then I mean, please point them our way because we just have more options, and the more options you have, the better chance you have of getting a low rate, or at the least, even if the rate's not the best in your mind, at least you've got the best rate that's out there because there's
Yeah.
not going to be anybody else that gets a lower rate.
Yeah, and certainly something good to mention for the past clients who reach out to us about refinancing,
Yes,
mentioning that to them as well at that point, since a lot of them have homes in that age group that where it would really matter.
right, exactly. And I didn't even mention solar panels. There's more companies writing solar panels now. Even though solar panels can still be a pain, right? And uh, whether you do or don't recommend them to people, I know is always one of those questions that's up in the air. But the good news is there's more and more companies writing and covering solar panels. So just another plus, right?
Okay, that's good to know
Uh,
too.
and one thing I would stress to everybody right now, I mean, this is hurricane season, and there is a storm potentially, right? I mean, we don't know. It's a potentially Gabriella. Hope nobody's name is Gabriella on the call.
Ah,
Gabrielle.
Am I
It's
right?
Gabrielle. It's my hurricane cousin.
it's
Oh,
your
okay,
hurricane
okay.
cousin.
So it's Gabrielle. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I almost put that on you, and that would have been so wrong. So forgive me for that. So Gabrielle, no, not the. But anyway, So just to stress this again for not just our mortgage friends, but our realtor friends that are on the call, just to reiterate this, this is the biggest thing during hurricane season: communication, communication, communication. Because if a storm gets close and the home insurance companies all start putting binding restrictions in place, which means they're shutting down, no writing business, no taking money. A lot of them won't let us quote. Our goal before that happens is to bind as many policies as we can because we don't know what the extent of the damage is going to be, and we don't know when these companies are going to open back up for business, right?
Yeah.
We've seen them shut down for weeks. So we try to bind as many policies as possible so that the effective date doesn't get backed up because that starts potentially messing with people's lives, right? You know,
Yep.
they're living down here in a hotel waiting to close. You know, there's just a lot of
Right.
factors that happen.
Sellers, all of that good stuff. All the more reason that all of you agents need to try to keep your team as close as possible for every transaction to have, you know, get a quote from Florida Best Quote. And we work so closely with them that we are on top of it at the very beginning of the transaction to get the quotes out to the buyers and get them to review them and choose them quickly. Not rushed where they have to do it in a 24-hour period or anything like that, but a lot of other lenders will just have it on their list for one of the items that need to happen prior to closing. You've got to choose your insurance. Whereas we're getting those quotes to them at the very beginning of going under contract. Take a look at them, you know, reach out to Florida Best Quote if you have any questions on coverage or anything like that. And let's get this solidified. All the more reason, like Jason said, during this period of the year where we've got to have it selected, got to get it ready and bound, because these storms, they can definitely delay closings. And people just do not have that on their radar, and buyers don't understand, what do you mean, you know, and we have to explain this whole deal to them of what's going on with a
Yeah.
potential storm or one getting close, and it can definitely affect everyone.
Yeah, and I so agree, and you know, shout out what you're saying as well. I think the one key tip is make sure that at the very as soon as you go under contract, you know, realtors are usually very good about ordering inspections, but they're not always great about not just connecting them with an insurance agent, but following up and making sure that they have talked to the insurance company. I mean, there's how many times have you followed up with them 4 or 5 days later? Hey, did you ever get a quote? No, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot do that during hurricane season. We have to have their information at the very beginning, all their personal information, so that we're not trying to track that down when the storm is about to hit. Because I've told y'all before, how many times over the last 13 years have I been on the phone 15, 30 minutes before all the binding restrictions are falling into place, and I'm just trying to get somebody's, do they have any dogs? I'm trying to get them at
Yeah.
work.
The previous
Questions that
address, that good stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All, you know, I mean, social security numbers, all that, because I never talk to them, right? And
Yeah.
I always joke around with y'all because it's like, how many times has somebody just handed me, hey, I need a quote for this address? And then I don't hear anything until Van Dyke gets in touch with us and says, hey, here's a binding request. And that's the first time we've seen their name, the buyer's
Yeah.
name, right?
Yeah.
Cannot do that during hurricane season. You've
Right.
got to follow up with them and make sure that they have connected with an agent and they have quotes and inspections are done and turned in early.
Yep.
It's a
And
priority.
I,
So
I think most of you on the call know this already, because you work with us often. But if there is anybody on the call that doesn't know, we get with the insurance company right away and for the buyer on behalf of the buyer and getting a quote. So a lot of lenders do not do that. We're very involved in the helping facilitate this along and getting that initial quote very quickly for
I have,
them.
Ron Batten here. I have a question. How many days before closing can a property be bound by insurance? I mean, is there some kind of a too many days or, what's
yeah,
the lead time?
it's
Go ahead.
it's usually 30 days or less, within 30
Oh,
days.
wow. Okay. That's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can bind, you know, up to 30 days out. So that's great, actually. So
A really quick question for you, Jason. I was wondering, are there still a lot of companies that give you a hard time about moving up an effective date? I know there's like
Um,
several companies that you have to like resubmit. So I always try to let agents know sometimes it's not just super easy to, we got the clear to close early. Let's just move the closing date up. Then we have to go
yeah.
back to the insurance company and change that effective date. And it's not just a date change sometimes. Sometimes it's, more work for you guys than just that.
And
So,
you're talking about after it's been bound, correct?
right, right. Mhm.
Yeah. It completely depends on the company. Yes, you're exactly right. There are still some companies that are a pain in the rear end. And I only say that because it's not a on the phone, hey, can you change this? Yes, it's changed. There are
Right,
companies that can just do it over the phone, done, right?
right.
And then there's others we have to submit a request and it can be 24 hours or 48. I mean, and that to me, that's bad business, but that's just the way some of the companies
The way
are.
some of them are. Yeah. So I
Um,
just wanted to touch on that for agents. Like if you have
yes,
any inclination that the sellers are okay with it and the buyers really want to move up that closing date, just communicating that with the lender so that we can communicate it with the insurance company that
exactly.
that's bound it. It's just helpful to know ahead of time, and we just make a note of that. Hey, this might be a possibility. That way we can relay it to Jason and his team too, that this might be a potential, maybe it's like a Monday closing and they want to try to close it on a Friday instead. If we know that ahead of time, even just a week or two ahead of time, we can communicate that with the insurance company, and it just helps for that to actually be able to happen instead of having to give the bad news of like we had to, resubmit this request with insurance and it's going to take, longer than expected or what the buyers expect, which is like this, right?
Yeah, that's what we
So,
want, right? We want them to just, hey, here's a phone call, underwriting. Hey, we need to change the date. And then some of them will do it immediately, some of them won't. So it's good to have that information ahead of time. The good news is this is not one of those things that's going to take a week to change. But as long as we have a couple of days, I don't know of any company that's going to take days, 3, 4, 5 days. It's usually within
yeah,
24 to 48 hours. But that's if it's last minute, 24 hours, 48 hours can be a long time.
right, right.
Our next tentative session with Jason and the Florida Best Quote team is going to be on Friday, October 3rd. All right, we'll see you next month, and thank you all for attending. Have a great one.
Thank you guys. Always good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
All
Bye.
right. See you.